Comrades, I bring to the rally the greeting of the Kent miners, and yes, indeed, the British miners, and in doing so, I want to thank you all for the tremendous support that you give to the miners, to our families in the historical struggle. You, among many thousands and millions of people, helped to finance our struggle. From Australia to America, the socialist lands, yes, even poor Afghanistan, from all of the countries, we received fraternal, material, and financial support. But comrades, we have got to be honest. There's one black mark at least, and I refer, of course, to the Polish coal that was brought in. And I must also be honest, when the miners were screaming for support, when we were screaming for help, to the shame, the everlasting, eternal shame of the TUC, the bastards walked the other way. And never ever let them do that again. You see, the money was important. The demonstrations were important. But you will not win the class struggle that way. You will only win the struggle by moving the workers forward and showing the perspective of the new society. And what a tragedy. The working class never realized that we were telling the truth when we were forecasting what the future would hold should the miners be pushed back. Sad to say, those forecasts have come true. Our union, the finest union in this country, is in the process of being taken apart. The union at branch level is being ignored by McGregor and the other bosses. Scargill, who led the battle from the front, is under attack. And the money's been taken off the union. And the judges are lining up with all of those people who were prepared to starve our kids in order to force us back into submission. And every time the National Executive tells Scargill to go in and do whatever the judge is asking him, the judge tells him to get out, and he ups the ante. And I say quite clearly to those people who tell Scargill to go in and keep apologizing and doing various things, it will not satisfy the judges. What the judges are asking for and what the logic of their decisions is, in the final analysis and their final question will be, tell Scargill to go back and resign his position. That's what they're after. And the miners must never allow that sort of thing to take place. The bosses, as we all know, are creating splits in our organizations, certainly in the miners' union. They've just offered a wage increase to the scab outfit, and none to us. Some people say that that's in order to encourage the miners to go into the scab outfits. There might be some truth in that. But remember, the bosses are not the friends of either the miners, whether you be in the NUM or some scab outfit. I see the offer to scabs as being just a little tiny offer, nothing else. But unfortunately, the scabs will see it in a different light. They will say they're offering us a bit and the NUM nothing. Let's grab that while we can. And you see the contract has already worked. For the scab outfit to turn down this scruffy offer that has been made to them. Yes, McGregor will do to the scabs what he is attempting to do to the miners in the NUM and with the agreements that we have got. He will negotiate pit agreements. He will negotiate area agreements. He will then involve himself in agreeing little coalface agreements, and then individual agreements with individual miners. So you get a situation where two men working together and one doesn't know what the other one is earning. I lived through that period, and I can tell you that it was a disgusting period. It was a period of hell. Ken Toon, Scabby Toon, the president of the Scab outfit. Many of you might not know, but let me tell you this. About 10 years ago, Scab Toon applied and got the job of the Industrial Relations Officer of the National Coal Board in London. He never took the job, some people say. I'm of the opinion that he did take the job, and the events of the last few weeks are proving me right. In relation to the victimized miners, and it's time we cease calling them the sacked men. The miners have not been sacked, they've been victimized. They've been blacklisted, and never ever, comrades, refer to them as sacked miners. They must not be categorized in negotiations with the board or indeed anybody else. If you do that, you say we'll have him back, but we'll not have him back. And so you get to a situation where you'll take a dozen back in one coalfield, none in another, like is taking place in Kent, but you'll always leave the fighters. The cream of our union you'll leave to one side. And the victimized men cannot be disassociated from the question of pit closures. We must assist the victimized men to organize. And yes, we must help to finance them. We've got to prepare for the massive lobby that has been called for by our union. And it is the duty of everybody to make sure that London stops on that day if possible, in order that we can bring the attention to the British working class to bear on that outfit down the road. The Kent coalfield, that is under attack, and I make no apologies for saying that here today. We are going to Nottingham on Tuesday to appeal on behalf of the Kent miners to lift the threat of closure. The coal board will not give us any information that we're seeking. I can tell you now that in the Kent coalfield there's 150 square miles of the most valuable coal in the British nation. It contains no ash, no sulphur, and no chlorine, making it a very attractive proposition to the environmentalists. I would also point out that the pit that the coal board in Kent are holding up as the best coal, the pit in the coalfield, is Snowdown Colliery. Snowdown was one of the famous 5 pits only a year ago due for closure. That's the crooked way the coal board deal. But now it seems that that pit has got a bright future. We must ask ourselves, where is Thatcher taking us? I said many times in the strike that the jackboots were being pulled on. The jackboots are indeed on now, as many sections of the working class are coming to realise. We see them everywhere. We see them in Toxteth, in Brixton, and more recently in Tottenham. And on that issue, let me say quite clearly, I take a class stand on that. I don't take the position that certain people shouldn't revolt in the way that they did. I ask myself, what are the conditions for making them do that? I also ask myself, And perhaps this is the first question I'll start with. When the miners were on strike, who were the people that helped us? Was it the same people who were riding in the places I've just mentioned? Or the Kinnicks and the pigs and the rest of the thugs that were attacking us? And then I draw my line and support those people. And whilst I'm talking about Kinnock, let me say this, and I'm not a member of the Labour Party. And I want to say this to Kinnock. As a member of the working class who pays my political levy regularly, I don't want you in Westminster carrying out the same policies of Thatcher and a clique. Where do you stand in relation to socialism, Kinnock? Are you for the nationalisation of all our major industries? Are you for giving the working class control of the factories, the armed forces, the police, the judiciary and the lot? And if you're not, then, Kinnock, you're not a socialist and you should get out. And if you want to measure, and I know you already know what side he's on, if you really want to find out what side Kinnock's on, when Mrs. Elizabeth Battenberg comes back from a jaunt in the Caribbean and she goes to open Parliament, watch who's walking alongside Thatcher into the Houses of Parliament, and then you'll be considered to have seen a traitor walking in with your class enemy. And so, comrades, I believe that in order to retain power, Thatcher will do what many other dictators have done if we're not careful. She will create a state of emergency and destroy any future general elections, and that, I say, is a possibility. And so my advice to everybody, I don't want to be arguing about nonsense. As socialists, as communists, as representatives of the working class, we must say to each other, we've got to project what socialism means. What are the advantages of a socialist society? Encourage and develop our propaganda work in order that we can organise the working class whilst at the same time attacking and bringing down the disgusting, evil, warmongering system under which we now live.